Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart. Today I'm going to be breaking down this 10-game NBA slate we have here on DraftKings, going through some of my favorite early look core plays, as well as building a potential lineup around those early look core plays. Obviously, everything changes with injury news, so make sure to stay updated with me on Twitter at HartDFS and on my free Patreon link down below, where I do a whole slate right up and go into more detail. I will have a price fix video out later today as well. We're on a nice little streak there. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And now let's get into this breakdown. So we have another big slate here, 10 games, a decent amount of news that is coming out. So everything's will probably change by this afternoon. So definitely make sure to stay updated with the injury news there. But starting off with Orlando and Charlotte. On the Orlando side, obviously it's a great matchup here versus Charlotte. It's just no one really stands out right now. Obviously, Paolo's coming off that big game there versus the Pelicans. Obviously, versus, in a worse matchup versus the Bucks. Didn't do that great, but I don't mind him there at 7,200 if you land on him. Wendell looks decent. He's still. I mean, the minutes haven't been there as you can see, which is you don't love. But usually before that, he was seeing about 30, 32 minutes, which he was an okay play there. I think Fultz probably is still the safest one for me and the one I have most interest in. He's been the most consistent, playing a little bit over 30 minutes. He's been super efficient. He's great at getting some rebounds and assists. So I think Fultz is going to be my favorite right now if you want to get to a piece here. I don't mind Franz. We know all these guys have ceilings. It's just, hard to trust them. Corey Anthony, if you want to take a shot on him, it obviously helps that game blew out. He got more minutes there, but he is productive off the bench. You can have those random games where he goes off in like 20 minutes or so. Jalen Suggs is a decent value play there. Should see mid-20s. And that's really it. You can get down to take a random shot on Bol, but I don't trust it. I don't think there's a need to. On the Charlotte side, obviously there is no LaMelo. So Terry Rozier, he looks very, very solid there at 7,700. It's kind of the same breakdown. You just really need him to hit his shots because he's going to do a little bit of everything. He's got the minutes. He's got the usage. It just comes down to, can he hit his shots? Kelly Oubre, I do like him a good amount. That last game was super frustrating. If you guys did not see, he was 1 of 11 at halftime. 1 of 11. And then he was 3 of 16, like halfway through the third quarter. And then he obviously really stepped it up there. But I mean, it was just so frustrating. 1 of 11 and then 3 of 16, like 2.5 quarters through the game. It's like, really? But yeah, he has a very solid upside. He's obviously pretty scoring dependent, but he can definitely get you there at 6,600. I do like his price tag here. So I think as of right now, I'm just going to throw him in. We'll have to wait and see through the rest of this video if I keep him in. But yeah, I think he's a very solid piece. PJ Washington's most likely doubtful. Gordon Hayward's there at 6,500. Mark Williams, they're fine secondary options. Same thing with Dennis Smith Jr. He came off the bench, played 26 minutes. That's kind of the Dennis Smith Jr. game you're looking for. Mid-20s, closer to 30 minutes. Going to stuff the stat sheet, but nothing too crazy. So if he comes off the bench again, I think he's another decent play. Nick Richards is there if you think Mark Williams is going to get in foul trouble or if he's just going to get benched for some reason. But that's really it. Not a lot of interest. I don't think McGowan's even played that last game. Or he did. But yeah, not a ton in that first game. Moving on to Brooklyn and Boston. There's big blowout risk here. So these Brooklyn guys, they're all going to be super, super low owned just because a lot of people are going to be scared away because of that. The potential blowouts and because of the salaries. Like, they're not the most appealing salaries, but these guys play huge minutes. If it's a close game, they should be in line to play 37 to 38 minutes for a guy like Bridges, a guy like Dinwiddie. So I have a good amount of interest in them just because they're going to be so low owned on this slate. Claxton, another guy who could see 30 plus minutes. Cam Johnson. So it's like he's actually been playing very well recently too, even though he's pretty scoring dependent. Cam Thomas has kind of been struggling a bit. And then DFS has just been god-awful. But right now, it's like if Brooklyn looks good, if you want some very low-owned guys who could be in line for huge minutes and have very solid upsides, all 4 of them are definitely in play. So I have a good amount of interest in them. It just comes down to how risky do you want to get. On the opposite side, obviously, if it's going to be a blowout, we know it's going to be coming from most likely Tatum and Brown. I think I prefer Brown, coming off that bad game there against Brooklyn, their last game against Cleveland. Tatum was the one to go off. I think they're still both very solid plays. I think I have a little bit more interest in Brown, but not like a real standout or priority for me. The rest of the team, Marcus Smart always a decent, GPP option that can randomly go off. Robert Williams is 5,100. We know he's upside there, as you can see in that last game. So I think right now, maybe Robert Williams is my favorite play, and then followed by Brown and Tatum. Moving on to Portland and Atlanta. On the Portland side, obviously Simons is most likely doubtful for this game. Nurkic is still out, so Dame and Lillard, or excuse me, Dame and Grant going to have to do all the scoring here. So I don't mind them. They're both very solid plays there. Grant stepped up that last game in the previous game. So I think they're both pretty solid options. Eubanks should split the center minutes with Watford. Reddish, he's been playing a little bit better recently. Thibault, he's been doing decent as well. So there are some value plays here with Reddish, Thibault, and Little and Sharp. I prefer getting to Thibault and Reddish. It seems like their minutes are a little bit more safe and secure, but these guys should get a little bit of a minutes bump with Simon's being ruled out most likely, and one of them getting slid into the starting lineup, and the other's probably playing more minutes off the bench. So I think my most interest there is obviously going to be the two main guys at the top and some of those wings. On the Atlanta side, Trae Young is questionable, but he should be good to go. I think he looks pretty solid here, 9,500. Same thing with DeJounte Murray. We know he's a guard who has pretty big upside, 49 in that game against Cleveland. So I like him in tournament settings here if you want to get a piece from this team. Clint Capella is probably going to be super popular. He was struggling to see 30 minutes for like the past month. And obviously with the new coach, was it Dan Snyder? He played 35 minutes and went for a 50 bomb. So if Capella's going to see 30 plus minutes, he's way too cheap here at 5,600. So right now I'm going to lock him in, but we'll kind of have to wait. Hopefully get some, clarification on if he's going to be playing those minutes. Moving on to the rest of the team, there's more secondary options like these cheaper guys like Hunter. He's been playing solid minutes. I don't mind landing on him. Same thing with John Collins. If you land on these guys, they're okay plays. Don't mind it. Okongwu only played 13 minutes. So yeah, it's just really, if I'm going to pick someone, it's going to be the two guys at the top, or it's going to be Capella. Moving on to Phoenix and Chicago. Great matchup here for Phoenix. Kevin Durant is back. He played 27 minutes. So it looks like he's going to be close to a 30 minute limit here. But yeah, no real need to get to him. Booker's there at 9,000. He had a huge game alongside Durant. I think it's a little bit hard to trust. He did kind of do great when it came to rebounding and assists. Got 2 blocks as well. So I don't know. I think there's more contrarian options, as a Booker play. Same thing with Ayton. They're another solid play, but I think they're both just contrarian plays. Chris Paul, same thing. He's just not going to shoot a lot. He's just going to be out there to get assists. So really no interest or need to get to any of these Sun guys unless you want to get super random and contrarian. Moving on to the Chicago side. Vooch, 8-8 looks okay. Levine, 8-4. DeRozan, 8-1. If I had to pick someone, it'd probably be DeRozan, but they're all there. Just no real interest for me. I have a little bit of interest in Pat Bev. It'll be interesting to see how popular he is. He's been productive recently. I had that double-double with rebounds and assists. Obviously, that's a little bit of an outlier, but I think he's an okay value play still at 3,700. Where is he? Caruso, kind of the same thing. Should play mid-20s minutes. He can definitely get you there, 3,200. I don't mind that. They're going to need his defense on the floor tonight, so maybe they'll both be in line for a little bit more minutes. I own Kobe White, just more contrarian plays. No real need to get to them. Drummond's there if you want to take a shot in GPP settings. But right now, I'm probably focusing on maybe those two guards for me. Moving on to the Knicks versus Miami. Knicks side, I think these guys are all very strong secondary options. They've been playing great recently if you've been keeping up with the NBA. Randall, probably the safest. Brunson's been the most explosive in terms of offense recently, coming off that 39 real-life point game. So they both look very solid. RJ Barrett is definitely a very solid GPP play. It's just the minutes have not been good on him recently. Not even seen 30 minutes. So for that reason, it's pretty hard to get to him. Mitchell Robinson, one of those centers, he's like a Robert Williams. They both have very high upside. They're both foul prone at times, but if they can stay out of foul trouble, they should both see at least 30 minutes and be very solid plays. So I like some Mitchell Robinson here in this spot. Quickly is always a decent option in that kind of mid-range 4K area. That's really it. Moving on to Miami. The big news for Miami is Jimmy Butler is questionable. If he's out, I have a ton of interest in a guy like Bam and Tyler. Bam was one of the best GPP plays of the slate last game versus Philadelphia with no Embiid, and if, of course, they get blown out by like 25. Oh, that's super frustrating, but 8,000, if there is no Jimmy, I think you lock in Tyler Hero and Bam, either one of them, or if not both of them. In this matchup, they're going to have to do a ton offensively, so they both look great. Good amount of interest in Kevin Love. The minutes haven't been great, but he looked to do a little bit more offensively if there's no Jimmy. Now, if Jimmy's there, sure, you could still land on one of these pieces. I'd say Tyler Hero would be my favorite. And then maybe a guy like Vincent's okay, but a guy like Victor Oladipo saw a little bit more minutes, 22. He's a guy that at the beginning of the season, during the middle of the season, he was seeing close to 30 and had very solid upside. So I think Victor still is one of my favorite plays on the Miami side. Moving on to Utah and OKC, great matchup here. Laurie looks like a very solid, he's always a very solid, just contrarian spin up because no one likes getting into him. Kind of has a limited ceiling at times. It's pretty scoring dependent, but he just plays big minutes. He's been super, super efficient, so he looks good. Walker Kessler, 6,900. He's a huge ceiling. It's just at times he gets in foul trouble and gets limited. In that last game, he didn't, which is surprising. But yeah, I think he's a decent play there at 6,900. Not like a real standout play to me, but I think he still has very solid upside. THT is now 6,400. He's pretty much destroyed everyone in the past like 4 or 5 games when he's been chalk. Hasn't really done much. Wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those games where he's like 10% owned and goes for like 50 for like a triple double. Because that's what's been happening recently with chalk plays. They've been busting, and then like the next game when they're fully healthy, they've been going off. So he looks okay. Same with Olenek. They all have upsides. Sexton's still out. Clarkson's still out. So for that reason, Chris Dunn should see some minutes off the bench. He played 26. He was decently productive. I don't mind him again here at 4,300. It's Agbaji's there. Everyone's just kind of priced about right. Fonticino, whatever his name is. Yeah, I mean, everyone's just kind of priced about right. It's a great matchup. It's just no real standouts to me. If I had to choose, it'd probably be Dunn and Horton Tucker. Moving on to OKC, SGA is still out. Skitty is 7,900. Finally had a good game there, of course, when I don't play him. I played him for like 3 straight slates when he went for 19.5, 34, and 24.5. And of course, pretty much goes for a triple-double in the game I don't play him. Super frustrating. But at 7,900, great matchup. I think he looks very solid once again. It's just, can we trust those minutes? I'm not sure. Jalen Williams up to 6,800. Kind of out of play for me. I mean, he's coming off of 2 great games there. Did very well for me in that last game. 34 minutes, 44 fantasy points. So I think it looks decent, looks solid. Not a real standout for me or priority. Lou Dort got priced up. He looks decent. Isaiah Joe is 4,500. It's like a great matchup for both these teams, but it's just like none of the price tags really stand out to me. So yeah, right now, just more strong secondary plays. I think my only interest would be Josh Giddey as of right now. Moving on to the last couple of games here. Memphis versus Denver. Great game here. John Morant, I think he looks very solid here, 10-3. Same day with Desmond Bain. Both very, very strong secondary options. I don't mind Triple J, but he's more of like a third string option for me. We know he's upside, but I just don't like the price tag there in this matchup. Tillman, I think he makes for a decent value play here, but there is foul trouble guarding Jokic. If he gets in foul trouble, more minutes for Brandon Clark. That's really it. It's just another team where they're all just priced about right. No real standouts. On the Denver side, I do really like Jokic here at 11-8. Should be in line for a great game. I like Jamal Murray a good amount too. He's a guy who's been on fire recently. He's been very, very solid. So I like him in this matchup. Ja's not the best defender, as we know. So I do like Jamal Murray here. Gordon and MPJ are questionable. So they both look like decent contrarian options, secondary options. But I prefer to just get into Jokic and Jamal Murray. And that's really it for this team. Maybe you could take a shot on Reggie Jackson as some random value off the bench. He's been playing okay minutes and he's been aggressive, so I don't mind that. But that's really it. Moving on to Pelicans and Golden State Warriors. Ingram, 8,600. It's just hard to get to him at that price tag, but he's there. CJ, 7,800. I prefer getting to him if you want a piece from this team. J-Val is most likely doubtful. So Hernan Gomez got the start, but was just super, super bad. 21 minutes, 20 fantasy points. 2 of 7. Just didn't really do much. I think Jackson Hayes outplayed him, as we can see here. 15, 4, 3, 2, and 2, 32.5 fantasy points. So he definitely got outplayed. But yeah, I don't mind going to Hernan Gomez here at 4,300. It's just like, will the minutes be there? Like, Golden State obviously plays small. It's like, will they just play small and have Hayes at the center position, or will they keep Hernan Gomez in, or will they go smaller with like a guy like Najee Marshall or something like that? So there is that risk that they do go small there. But I think you got to have. You got to throw the last game out the window. He's a guy that can definitely go off for 50 fantasy points here in like 25 minutes. So I really like Hernan Gomez here as a cheap center play. In terms of the rest of the team, I don't mind getting to, where do you go? Hayes, should be in line to 15 to 20 minutes. He could be productive, 3,800. But I feel just a little bit safer going with Hernan Gomez. That's really it. Josh Richardson is there. He should probably start. But no real standouts besides that. Moving on to Golden State Warriors. I think Poole and Clay once again looked very, very solid. We saw huge games from the last game last night. It'll be interesting to see if maybe Clay sits out. I know they said he's going to be playing back-to-backs for the rest of the season, but there is that risk there. But in terms of that, it's really just those two for me. Draymond's like a strong secondary option. Green, or excuse me, DiVincenzo, Looney are definitely there. Kuminga, Ty Jerome, it's just like, yeah, they're all kind of there. Moving on to the Clippers, we know Kawhi Leonard's out. Paul George said he's probably going to play. I wouldn't be surprised if they rule him out. So definitely keep in mind that Paul George could definitely get ruled out. Powell is questionable with an arm injury. Zubac might get ruled out. He's questionable. Or he missed that last game versus Warriors. So there's a lot of, going on here with this Clippers team. So definitely be prepared and be wary about that. But I'm going to throw Paul George in for right now, just because if he does play, he should lead this team. I think Russ looks great here. The minutes haven't been great. He wasn't productive last game. They've been 0-4 with him. But yeah, this is kind of the biggest team in terms of like injury news that can definitely affect the slate. So I'm going to lock in Paul George. I don't mind getting to Russell. You can definitely do that if you want to. But Powell and Zubac are questionable. If they're both out, obviously Plumlee got the start. He did very, very solid there. I think once again, he looks, great. Another very cheap, the very cheap center play, Capella, Hernangomez, you got Plumlee. I think all three look great. Terrence Mann maybe gets to start if one of those guys are out. Maybe he slides back to the starting lineup. So I think he looks like a great value play there at 4,000. Maybe they start with Eric Gordon. He started last game and was okay. It'd be a decent value play, but there's a lot of news to go on here. So right now, I think Batum is a interesting value play as well. But right now, my standouts to me are going to be Paul George, Plumlee, and probably Terrence Mann. So let's kind of wait and see. Hopefully we get the news before, the slate locks, just because these are the later games. It's a huge slate. Otherwise, you're going to have to make that decision of, do you play around the fact that everyone's in besides Kawhi Leonard? If that's the case, then you're going to want Paul George. You're going to want maybe Russ, and then maybe take a shot on a guy like a Man as value play or Eric Gordon. But if you want to, be a sharp, smart, or you want to be sharp, you play for the fact that Paul George may be out, Zubac may be out, Powell may be out, and there's going to be a ton of value here to like on the Clippers side. So I think I'm going to play that route and just see kind of how the field plays that. But they get a great matchup here versus the Kings. On the Kings side, Sabonis looks decent, Fox looks decent, Monk, Carter, all those guys are there. It's just real no standouts to me. And then moving on to the last game, Minnesota and the Lakers. Minnesota side, Anthony Edwards looks great here. 9,400, a couple bad games the past 2 games, hasn't been shooting the ball great, but we know he's huge upside, so I do really like him as a spin-up play. Kyle Anderson, a matchup here where he is very solid upside, 5,400, so I like both of those guys there. That's really it. Moving on to the Lakers side, obviously it's going to come down to Anthony Davis. 10-2 is way too cheap for this guy. I'm not sure why he's that cheap. So I think right now I'm going to take out... See, that's what's hard. It's like there's 4 great center plays. If Zubac is out, it's Plumlee, Capella, Hernangomez, and Anthony Davis. And obviously you can only play 2 centers, so that's kind of the issue today. Oh, I think right now I'm going to take out Anthony Davis, but we'll have to wait and see. Schroeder looks decent. Vanderbilt's priced up too high for me. Beasley's just been terrible. It's really only going to be Anthony Davis for me. I don't mind getting to Reeves. He's been productive the past 2 games. Maybe he gets more minutes. The rest of the team has just been bad. Like Beasley's been terrible. Vanderbilt's been terrible. Schroeder's been decent. Hachimura's been terrible. You could take a shot on a guy like Winyan Gabriel, who's been seeing decent minutes. 12 and 22, he's productive. But right now, my only interest is going to be Anthony Davis and maybe Reeves. So right now, this is what the lineup is looking for. Obviously, as I said, we're going to have to wait for that Clippers news. It's kind of just huge news on the slate. But right now, I think my core plays are going to be Jamal Murray, Paul George, hopefully if he plays, Anthony Davis, and Clint Capella. And to fill out the rest of this lineup, so 4,700 left over. Let's just hop back over to the Clippers side, just because we know there's going to be potentially very solid value. Now, if Powell's out, obviously we're going to want to look to maybe Eric Gordon, maybe a Batum if they start. They could definitely get weird here, but let's just assume he's in. If he's in, I do really like him with, Kawhi Leonard being out. Paul George maybe starts, but if they bring him off the bench, he should still be in line for very solid minutes. He's a guy that can definitely go off there, so I like him in GPPs. In a great matchup here versus the Kings. Power forward position, 4,500 left over, just about. Let's see what we can get here. For this side, Keegan Murray's a guy that's been doing well recently, so I will mention that. Who else do we got here? I mean, you could go to Hachimura. Don't love that. Troy Brown's been starting. He's been okay. Just not a lot to like here. I mean, you could take that shot on a guy like Jackson Hayes. You know, if you don't get that Hernan Gomez piece in there, if you wanted a piece, he's pretty foul prone, so he's lost minutes because of that. But let's say Hernan Gomez gets in foul trouble or does bad, or they just want to go with a little bit quicker, more athletic guy with Jackson Hayes. They could definitely do that. So I think right now, I'm just going to throw him in there, and then just kind of go from there. And then 5,200 left over here at the other forward position. So I think for the last position right now, I'm just going to throw in DeAndre Hunter, a guy that should be in line for at least 33 to 35 minutes. He's a guy that should shoot 10 plus times. He's a decent shooter as well. Can get you those peripheral stats. So as we can see, he's a guy who can get you, mid 30s fantasy points if he's having a really, really good game, maybe into the 40s. So I think right now, 4,600, I'm just going to go with him in that spot there to kind of just fill out the lineup. As I said, there's just a ton of news we have to wait for, especially for that Clippers side. So hopefully we get that relatively soon. But if not, you're going to have to make that decision if you want to play for that news or if you want to play against that news. So right now, as I said, the core plays are going to be Jamal Murray, Paul George, Clint Capella, and Anthony Davis. And then we're going to just kind of wait for that news and hopefully play around that. So right now, if you guys like the video, hit that like button, subscribe. Do appreciate all you guys' support. Make sure to check out my Prize Picks video later today. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.